Hey everyone, I decided to make a review of the Gigabyte X470Ultra gaming motherboard review. The reason I do this because a lot of videos don't really depict all the nuances this board has. Aside from features you might have found online, on manuals, in other reviews, this board is very odd. It sold for $140 US. I got it for $129 on sale. And to get in details why I actually bought this, because I wanted to upgrade my old Intel system. I always had Gigabyte as my motherboard. I always was a Gigabyte fan, and Gigabyte seemed to always provide me with what I need. That's the reason I again went with Gigabyte. I've played with this board for about a month and found all the strength and weaknesses of it. Let's open the package. Well, the board comes in as any other board with everything basic in the box. Here's your motherboard laying on top. On the bottom we have all the connectors, manual, which is very thin compared to some other boards, SATA cables, an Aorus logo, and the back plate. The back plate is insulated, which is sort of premium for this board. If you compare it to non-premium back plates, this is what you get. This is non-premium back plate. It is certainly nice to have an insulated back plate because it reduces noise and it seems to be fitting more tightly. You get a CD with the drivers, but I'm sure you will be going to Gigabyte website and downloading all the latest drivers. A good piece I found was this. You can plug in all your connectors for the front panel here before you install them in the case. So when you plug in the board, it's really easy. You just plug it in there or plug it out, take it out. That's how easy it is. Now let's get to the features. The features are promising. First of all, I want to point out what's really odd about this board is, first of all, it's called Ultra Gaming. When you hear this, you expect Ultra Gaming, and that's what's really makes me make this review, is because it's called Ultra Gaming, but in reality there is not much about it which is ultra or gaming. Other than you can game on it, there is nothing else gaming about it or ultra. Going to the back of the box, we see lots of features which actually are not always available on even more expensive boards. USB backup 2. This is not available on some $200+ boards. This is for audiophiles, sort of speaking. It smooths the signal to your backup in a straight line. That's what it does. So if you have a backup, you connect it to this one, and that's supposed to give you a clean sound. Also, it promises premium, impressive gaming sound with a amplifier, which is nice, RGB of course, and tons of fan connectors, which I like. I think this is the probably plus, the biggest plus of this board is that benefit that you have plenty of fan connectors to connect your fans to without splitters. Now the board itself comes with this cheap anti-static bag. This is something you would see on cheap hardware. I find this type of bag is very basic. But just worth mentioning, it doesn't matter. You just pull it out and install in your case, so that doesn't really matter. I'm just mentioning it. Now let's get to the board itself. The board is definitely good looking. It has some RGB, and it's not very RGB, but at the same time it's not lacking RGB. So you will see definitely some lightning effects and everything, and you also can control RGB from this board. If you have RGB fans, you can connect them to this board and so on, and then set different colors, different settings, and so forth. The Gigabyte has the software, which is actually very good for that. Let's go from the bottom up. On the very bottom, you have USB 3.0 connectors for your front of the case. In more expensive boards, you get 3.1 USB connectors here. That is an upset part about it. Then also you have a system fan here, and you have many system fans going up the board, which is, as again I said, it's a nice thing. Here we have a nice piece of audio, amp up. It's not the top of the line audio, but it's certainly a lot better than what you see on some other boards. So that's a plus. Here you have SATA M.2 slots, two of them. One has a heatsink, the other one doesn't. For example, the more premium version of this board, Gaming 7, would have two heatsinks, but here you only have one. But you also don't pay $250 for it, so you get what you pay for, sort of speaking. Now to the fun part. The reason I'm making this video is because when I started using this board, I found a lot of interesting things I think everybody should know before they buy this board. First of all, first thing that I noticed, as soon as I installed my M.2 SATA drive here, it just, I went to the BIOS, and I saw no way for it to be selected as a primary. And the reason is because this board's BIOS, even if you install the latest one, sees all other drives connected to regular SATA connectors as options to select primary from, but it does not see this as a primary. So what did I do? So I unplugged all the drives and left just the M.2. Then I boot back in the BIOS, and then I was able to select the M.2. Then I had to turn off the computer, connect all the drives back, and then go back to BIOS again, and everything was working. Inconvenience with this is if you're playing with this board, let's say you do an overclocking or you just decided to update the BIOS, it will go to standard settings and it will not see this as primary anymore. So you will have to disconnect all the drives, boot back to BIOS, select this as your primary, then turn off your computer, connect back all the drives, then turn it back on, and then you see it. So let's say you messed up your settings in overclock and it just locks, you have to pull out the battery. Yeah, you have to do it all over again and over again and over again, and think about how inconvenient this is for an enthusiast. And that's how you select the M.2 as primary. This is a big issue. I think it's a bug or something with their BIOS, but it's an issue. Then second issue is the memory. The memory would not go past 3200. That's it. So how did I find out? Because when I purchased a high-end memory kit like this is a B-die Samsung. It's a 3600 megahertz B-die, top of the top Viper RAM. It's pretty expensive. It's supposed to deliver really good performance. So once I install it here, I was excited. I thought, well, let me go to XMP profile and bump it to 3600 right out the box. And then I decided to kind of like save it, and that's it. The board locked. It would not boot at 3600. Then I tried the 3500. Nope, it does not boot. So the highest memory it supports is just 3200, and that's it. But even that, you have to play with timings. You have to there is like a software you can find on the internet. It's a Ryzen RAM calculator. So I used the timings for that, spent a lot of time, download all the timings, manually set them in, and that's how I was able to make the RAM run at 3300 stable. That was it. So again, for 140 bucks, that's what you get. That's why I say there is nothing ultra or gaming about it. That's the reason why, one of the reasons. Now let's go up. Here is the 8+3 claimed power phases. This MOSFET is not 8+3. You might watch other videos on YouTube or just reviews. I think a guy named Buildzoid talked a lot about this and even argued with Gigabyte that this is not 8+3. There is no way it's 8+3. Now, how is this an issue for you? You might say, well, I don't care if it's 8+3 or if it's 4+2 or 12 phase. I don't play with it, so I don't care. Well, the reviews say on Amazon and on Newegg that this board just died. What I read about it is that everybody says, well, it worked for 1 month and then just stopped working. Well, probably because the MOSFET just overheated, and that's it. That's how it happened. Because by me running a Ryzen 2600, which is only 60 watt TDP, made this MOSFET go up to 80 degrees already. I would imagine how hot this would get if I installed, let's say, 2700X 8-core CPU in this. That would definitely be too much for this MOSFET to even handle. And then, even if you, let's say, have it working and you somehow cool this down and so forth, you don't have an opportunity to really overclock too much because the voltage is not stable on this board. Because again, the MOSFETs are not that strong. You would have 1.4 volts set, but you will get like 1.5. So that was a big disappointment because I did not expect this board will be so limited. How would anybody arrive at this board is usually, this is how it happens. This right here is a Z97X Gigabyte board, which I purchased in 2014. And this board was $130. It basically was very good board. It just worked. It's an Intel board, Intel socket 1150. It just did work. Everything on it was just like I would expect. The BIOS had voltage controls. The memory would work just as it's supposed to out of the box. But then I thought that in 2018, the board like Ultra Gaming would offer me similar kind of like options, but in fact it did not, and that's why I feel like it's worth talking about it, and just everybody who's looking to upgrade to Ryzen should understand that this mainstream board is not gonna give them what they might hope for. So I had to let it go. Had to sell this board completely, and I had to again spend money on another board. This one, Gaming M7, is exactly $100 extra compared to that one. But I wish I kind of didn't make that mistake of going to the Ultra Gaming and actually went to a premium board like this to begin with, I would have saved some money. So forget about overclocking. So that's why this board is so odd, because it has all kind of features like USB dock up 2. It has Ultra gaming name. It has a heatsink for M.2. It has 3 PCIe slots. Just by looking at it, you would think, oh, this is a premium board, but actually it's not.